welcome back to New Realities. I'm Alan Steinfeld, and this is our second day of doing promotion for the upcoming walk-in conference. That's what this flyer is up there for, and it's going to be really the first of its kind, the first time anyone has ever presented a coming together of people who have accessed another realm of consciousness, who are part of another way of looking at humanity. I want to introduce the creator of this, Sheila Seppi. Sheila, talk about what your vision was to pull this together and who we have here today. So thank you.
Thanks, Alan. Well, I became a walk-in 1999, and I'll share that story a little bit later. But I was in the body for about 20 years, and my guides really started telling me, you know, you've got to go bigger, you've got to do more, you've got to get out, you've got to tell people, you got to share the story. And I was thinking at the time, I had to add more services, or I had to do this, or I had to do that. And I had no idea that their going bigger was bringing more people in with like minds so we could share the stories together. And so I started out with a series of events, and I kept hearing the go bigger, the go bigger. And I had an illness last year that really allowed me the opportunity to kind of sit and be still and to really listen. And so I wrote the book, Walk-ins, The Cosmology of the Soul, which is my story, 15 other walk-ins, and 8 other individuals who are in the field of science and consciousness about really what is a walk-in and why are we here and what are our commonalities? What are the missions that we have brought forward? And after the book came out, several of the people in the book decided that we wanted to continue to meet together. Even though the interviews were over, the book was published, everyone wanted to continue to have community and relationship. And so from that, I had already thought about having a conference. And when I shared it with everybody, it was so enthusiastically endorsed that we now have this first conference coming up January the 8th, 9th, and 10th, being hosted through Portal to Ascension. And you can go on there, purchase your ticket for the 3 days. It's only $88. And the cool thing is you don't have to really watch everything from beginning to end. Once you purchase your ticket, you can really watch it at your leisure. So there's some phenomenal stories, and there are a lot of people here today that you can see that are also going to be presenters. We have Maya Christable, Jacqueline Smith, Hildegard Minor, and we also have Yvonne Perry. But I'd like to introduce first Maya Christable. She's an independent film producer. She has a private practice.
Can I interrupt for 1 second? Do you want to, sorry, do you want to just show your book so people know how to get like more and deeper? Do you have a JPEG of it you can put up? But that's
I will put a JPEG up here in just
has it. And you can put a JPEG up later. There it is.
There we go. Here we go.
Cosmology of the Soul.
Right.
And
it's for sale on Amazon. There's also the ebook as well as the Audible book. So it has every format.
And before you introduce Maya, I just want to say what a unique opportunity this is for people to expand consciousness. And everyone has just such a beautiful story to share about their transformation. And like I said yesterday, this is not a little thing. This is a major, I would say, sacred event. Each person's process in unfolding a greater soul within them and to uplift humanity. And that's why I'm so excited about this event. I encourage everyone to get a ticket, go to Portal to Ascension, walk-ins, the conference, and you will not be sorry for the information, the activations, the initiations that you will receive at this conference. Okay, with that, then go ahead, Sheila.
Okay. Okay, thanks. So actually, Maya, let me go ahead and turn it over to you, and I'll just have you to introduce yourself and share a little bit about your story. So thank you so much for being here. And Alan, thanks so much for having us all back today.
It's great.
Yeah, I thank you both. This is a fairly monumental experience for me to participate in this conference, which is really part of my story. I am living in Denver, Colorado right now, and have been a psychologist for the last almost 37 years. Interestingly enough, during my training at Harvard, John Mack, who's been very instrumental in my life, was on the campus as the psychiatric person at the medical school, but I didn't go down that route, never got to meet him, never got to find out that he was delving into, for the very, very first time, the reality of experiencers like myself and everybody else on this call who have had life-changing experiences with multidimensionals. I have identified, as Sheila knows, I have identified myself primarily as a hybrid. I have known about being a hybrid since I was just about 5 years old, and navigating in the world where that conversation was not happening, since I am nearly 70 years old, was a really big mission for me, which is to just participate as I am, and have conversations when I can. But for the first 40 years of my life, these conversations that we're having today, which are entirely groundbreaking, they were not happening. We were all in the closet. Every one of us was privately talking about our experiences and what we were downloading and who we were seeing and who was coming into our lives on a daily basis in our journals, in the privacy of our own minds. So I didn't have this incredible experience of camaraderie, of a collective of people who have been born to have experiences that we're going to share today. But when Sheila asked me to participate in writing a chapter in her book was primarily focused on walk-ins. And that was a newer experience for me and a very enlightening awareness of how multifaceted we are in this human body having a multidimensional experience. It was about 3 years ago in November. I had a terrible accident. I probably should have broken every bone in my body or died. But in the moment when that happened, I had an experience of a hand right on my body, slamming me down onto the pavement. And I was completely out of pain. I did get found in the street by someone in the middle of winter who was snow plowing, who took me to the hospital, and they thought I'd broken all my bones. And, and I was basically happy and smiling and basically so happy to be alive. But at the time, I had an experience of being changed in some utterly complete way. My personality was still there. My awareness was still there, but my availability to a larger self became instantaneous. I was then in bed for 2 months in a tiny little cottage on the ocean by myself. If you've ever been in the state of Maine, that no one stays around the ocean during winter. And I had this incredible solitude to become acquainted with and integrate with a walk-in infusion that is my future self. And I don't think I really understood at the time that that was a possibility, because being a hybrid, I'm usually focused off planet as to where I was before I got here and who I was when I arrived. I never thought about who I was going to be in the future as the person that I am now, as the soul that I am now. And so that became a primary relationship. My kids would say, "Mom, I'm so sorry you're so alone for the winter in this cottage in bed." And I would say, "Well, I'm just not alone at all." And I had 2 months to get to know what I consider to be a very androgynous aspect of myself. I call this part of me Yvonne. And it has changed the way I see the world in every way, because I'm not only looking forward, I'm also looking backwards, and I'm also in the present looking at every experience that I have every day of my life, and every person I meet, through the lens of potentiality, through the lens of how much larger our universe is and our soul really is, to have the courage to come in as a human being, because I think coming in as a human being is a very courageous act. I will never diminish that ever. And so both being a hybrid and being a walk-in has been a challenging experience. And one of the greatest challenges has been doing what I'm doing now. I because of Sheila, in fact, it was a conversation my daughter had with Sheila one day, that finally my kids who are in their 30s, in their late 30s, asked me some questions for the very first time. And I had never once said, I need to sit you down and tell you who your mother is. I made an agreement that until they asked, I was not going to say a word. And in the last year, I've had the opportunity to have conversations with my children for the very first time with a lot of fear and trepidation. My daughters gave me a wonderful t-shirt that said that I'm a mother from Mars. And I just laugh most of the time that we even have a sense of humor about it. But what I am excited about in terms of this walking conference is that part of my reason for being here on this planet is to create a leveled playing field between everything we call extraordinary and ordinary, and that all of our experiences may seem so extraordinary to other people, but every person on this planet has the ability to have the experiences we're going to share today, and have the ability to reach beyond the 3D reality into the realities that are around us at all times. So I'm very happy to be here. I don't know if you have questions at all.
I have a question. Did you know you were a hybrid before the walk-in experience?
I've known I was a hybrid since I was 5.
How did you know that? What made you feel different than other people? I know we all feel different, but what made you feel different?
Yeah, that's a great question. And of course, back then there was no word. I mean, hybrid is such a newly in the last probably 5 years, we're really talking about hybrids at the level, at the common level, not in terms of experimentation, et cetera. I knew it because I saw beings 24 hours a day. I was accompanied by a very large entourage of guides and teachers. I had 2 near-death experiences that were inescapably time jumping for me. And of course, they're helping me find language for what the experiences were. At the time, when you're little, you don't think that you're something different. You think that this is the norm until you find out that nobody else is seeing what you're seeing, or feeling what you're feeling. I grew up in a military family, and they saw me as quite different. And as you can imagine, in the 50s, that was determined to be some sort of deficit on my part, some sort of illness on my part. So it was an interesting growing up time in my family, being the person I was.
Were you aware of genetic manipulations in your family? I mean, where was the idea of hybrid coming to you from? Like, how did you know?
All right. So first of all, hybrid was, I just felt like I was from another family. When you're little, you just go, well, this is not my family.
Right.
I'm from this family. So, and what I share in the story, the short story in the chapter in Sheila's book, is that, one of the reasons I went into developmental psychology and not psychiatry was I look at levels and layers of development and evolution. And so at every stage of evolution, my guides would only teach me what was appropriate for that level of evolving. And then I'd get a new team about 15 years later, and they would teach me at the level that I was at the time. So the genetic manipulation piece did not come out until I was in my late 40s, early 50s. And I wanted to say one quick thing, which is really very basic to my story, is that part of what my message was at the beginning of my life until I was in my 60s was that I was here to have a human experience and transmit that experience to those that were interested. And I was not to talk, read, go to the internet, have all kinds of bombarding of other people's experiences. I was supposed to just have my own. So I didn't reach out a lot to my guides to say, and my family to say, you know, how did this happen? Because there's a lot of ways that hybridization happens on our planet. My dad was in a very secret military organization, which was part of how my birth occurred. But I didn't get that information until I was in my late 40s, early 50s.
Oh, were you part of the agreement that the ETs made with the military to experiment on, you know, developing children? You know, there's a lot of literature about that. Do you know what I mean? Yes.
Basically, my dad made the agreement in his position because they were developing technology through ET's support. And so that I became my mom's egg and a genetic infusion of genetic material from an alien source became why I was born, pretty much. But you know, that was a really hard thing to wrap around because, you know, when you're little, it's very magical. You know, you don't think of the ETs in your room as being, at least I did not ever have, I have never once had a negative experience with an extraterrestrial or multidimensional. And so to me, there were such benevolent energies. You don't think that there's a dark agenda behind how you came to be, pretty much.
Right. So one more thing, when you had the walk-in experience, was like your future self, you said, that came through, then that future self was human and ET as well? Or what was the nature of that part of that soul that walked in?
That's a great question. I experience him as entire. I think of him as him because he has such a, from our standards here, he has a very androgynous towards masculine. And I only really say that because there's such a lack of emotional body. It's a highly intellectual body. One of his reasons for wanting to be here is that I am a highly emotional body. And so I experience him as fully ET. And what's interesting is these are great questions, Alan, because I really don't sit around and say, I need to ground this in fact, because my fact in life is that I exist. My fact in life is that I have these experiences on a daily basis, and that I have such a benevolent experience of being held by that which is larger than myself, that I don't tend to dig down into all the stuff of it. If I'm given the information, I'm really thrilled. Otherwise, I just put one foot in front of the other and tell my story as often as possible.
I get that. Maybe we'll do a longer interview at some point about all this, because I want to go into it. But just share what it is you are going to bring to the walk-in conference. What kind of presentation will you have there?
I want to talk a little bit about how people can, just any ordinary person can have experiences of moving beyond their 3D limitations, opening to conversations with what's around them at all times, whether it's multidimensionals, encouraging people to tell their story, just to share their story, or just share what they would love to be able to develop as a connection to our multidimensional universe. So I think I can't even remember what I named my talk, but I think I called it Nothing Special, because there's a way in which we are all very special, whether we're having an experience like we're sharing today. And I'm wanting to encourage people to have the courage and to reach out to people like ourselves who are now available. 10 years ago, we were not having this conversation. Right. Nobody even knew where to go to have a conversation about their suspicion about being abducted or having experiences that make them think that they're psychiatrically a problem. So my hope is just to open the door to people being able to develop the skills that might become part of their lives.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point about this conference, is the fact that we are multidimensional and we're starting to access those sensory organs in a way that is making us aware of the multidimensional realities. A friend of mine calls those EVO systems, evolutionary systems that are coming online. So I think that's a really great component of this conference, is for everyone to start to realize just how multidimensional we all really are. Right? I mean, anything anybody else wants to add to our question? Ask Maya, or we can. Hildegard, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I just want to say I concur with you entirely, Maya, because I experienced myself through my walk and experience as multidimensional. Like I am it, all and everything on all places. And it took me a while to realize it's not about continuously looking out there or up there. It's in here that all the action is. And I am to be enjoying this moment and bring as much love and joy and support to everybody I touch. It took me a while to figure this out, that it was okay to have fun.
Right. And how does being multidimensional add to your fun? I'm just curious.
Because whatever my conditioned mind might have been stuck in, perceiving the world as, I learned to switch that into looking at it from a different perspective, because everything is perspective.
Right.
And so that to me was very empowering, that at every situation, no matter it as it looked on the outside, you know, house burning down, snowstorm, where am I going to go? How am I going to survive this? There is this other aspect to it that I know I still have to live. There's a reason for being here. And I could be so grateful to, you know, end up in a safe space after all. So I think life situations for me, I was able to perceive from a higher level. It's almost like I'm flying above the situation and I can see all these various possibilities. And then rather than reacting, I can then step back for a sec and choose very consciously what would be the best for me and, you know, the people I'm responsible for at this moment in time. And I find it was super empowering. And again, very benevolent, all my contacts.
Yeah, I think that is what makes it more fun. The fact that we don't have to restrict our thought into a narrow window, and we can be all that we are supposed to be. I mean, that's what you're doing, Maya. I mean, everyone here. I mean, and but you, Maya, your way in is start to explore it also on a psychological basis as well, because you studied psychology, or is that extra to your expansion? I mean, placing it within a human psychological mechanism, or, well, tell us about that a little bit.
So say the question one more time.
No, well, you studied psychology, so how do we evolve, I guess that's a better way, psychology to include the multidimensional reality? I guess that's really what I'm asking. How do we, or we have to maybe transcend psychology, because psychology places all within that small container.
I mean, you could do an entire program on transcending psychology. You know, and in many ways, I've been trying to transcend psychology since I started my master's degree or my doctoral degree. I kept saying, there's more to this than the DSM that says everything that is unusual is pathology. And that probably is why I went into it, is to depathologize so many things that had been put in a manual for describing mental illness.
Wow.
And I've spent my entire time trying to break down mental illness into a different kind of category. And that's a very big conversation. But, you know, what was interesting is I had this life of doing all of this for all these years in higher education without a comrade, just having my perspective, writing papers from my point of view. And here's John Mack, who was changing the face of psychology and risking his entire life to do it, to say, I'm gonna debunk the real abductee story, and then finally comes around to believing that what he sees is absolutely the truth. And I think that that's where psychology is now so limited. I mean, I stopped doing psychotherapy that was talking therapy about 20 years ago, because I realized it's all energy. It's not, no one can talk their way to shift at all. And so when I discovered John Mack's work after all those years, I kept thinking, how did I not know he was out here? It just lit more of a fire to continue that conversation of all those things that we pathologize, all those children who are told that there's something wrong with them when they're just open vessels to straight up and straight here. So yeah, psychology has needs a new entire arm. It needs to be the psychology of the extraordinary, and that is really.
Let's do an interview about that maybe in a couple of days, because I have a lot to say about psychology as well, because the one thing that psychology has done, it's helped us understand ourselves, but the negative part is that it's made us afraid of our own mind, or it made us doubt our experience, and that was such a kind of handicap for the exploration of consciousness. So we need to have this conversation. So.
Yeah, I would love to. I mean, it's not one that's happening a lot.
Yeah.
And yeah, I have a lot to say about that. And I still practice very differently. I mean, I'll never not be working, because work is just a great opportunity. But I wanted to say one thing, because I know I have to leave earlier, and Hildegard, you brought it up when we were talking about fun. And this is probably one of the most important pieces of my interrelatedness with all the multidimensional beings in my life, is that sometimes we think that we've been given something and they're coming here to help us, or we're having an experience that's very paranormal, and it's for our edification or for our growth. And it's been a very one-way story. It is a two-way street. They come because they need us. They want to be with us. They are studying, they are learning, they are experiencing through our availability, and it is a team work. It's a collegialship, partnering. It's not like this one-way thing that happens to someone and then they're out watching to see how it goes. You know, I find it's some of the most intimate relationship I have is with the multidimensionals in my life, because they're so everything we'd like to be as humans. They're very truthful, they're very transparent. And one of the things about my walk-in is that he has a delight in having a human experience, just like I'm having a delight having a multidimensional experience. And I can look at the world like I always do, but he is chattering away, going, oh my God, look at this. And did you know that? I mean, he's like being with a child most of the time. And I have grown into an appreciation for a world I've taken for granted through his eyes, through his delight, his wonder, his awe, which feels like it's just a spiritual bedrock of who this walk-in is. He's more interested in awe than he is anything else, and love, of course. So that's where I have fun, is watching him adore the world where I have taken it for granted for so long. You know, I look at what's going on out here and headlines and everywhere else, and you can get your panties in a bunch and be all upset and, you know, make all kinds of judgments. And he is so nonplussed about it. He looks at opportunity. He laughs at things that get me, you know, with my hair standing on end. So he's given me a great liberation, I would say liberation.
Great. Well, thank you, Maya, for sharing everything that you are and you know, coming out with it. I just have to quote a line from what someone said in the chat during this conversation. He says, "None of this makes sense." To someone, it's like we are speaking a whole other language, and if you and I think part of this conference is to start to show people who they really are, so it starts to make sense. Right, Sheila? You have anything to add, Sheila?
Yeah, I agree, because, you know, when I became a walk-in, had it not occurred to me, I would not have believed it, because it's so far out of the norm. We're not taught about extraterrestrials. We're not taught about walk-ins. We're not taught about hybrids as children. And then as we grow up, we have these feelings and experiences that we've had to undergo alone our whole life. And that's why it's so beautiful now to come into a community of like-minded believers and people who are here with very specific purposes, very specific missions. And obviously, you know, experience is what everything is about. So, you know, in my belief that everything begins with source, and every experience that we have just goes right up through the vibrational chain back to source. And everything is edified and lifted up, whether the experience is positive, whether the experience is negative, but everything is about experience. And when we come into this life, I believe that the resonance that we carry also is helping to make genetic changes, DNA changes, so that we can hold more light. So while we're working and helping with Gaia and being an extension of that transformation, we're also transforming the human body.
That's great. No, you're absolutely right. This is not just about conscious change. It's about biological upgrade, because of course the biology follows the consciousness. So, all right. So who do you want to introduce next?
Let's see, right above. Hey, how about if we go to Yvonne?
Okay.
So, hi, Yvonne. Yeah, Yvonne is an author. She's a healing sound therapist, light language. She just brings in light codes and has so much to share. She offers classes online and has been a walk-in for 20 plus years. So everyone, Yvonne Perry.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sheila. Thank you, Alan. Pleasure to be with you today.
Yeah, tell us your walk-in story if you want, and then
okay,
whatever.
Which one? The first walk-in that I remember now, I did not know that's what was occurring at the time, was in 1976 when I was in a grease fire. I set the house on fire cooking. I was about 17 at the time and was out of body and was looking down on the scene below as I was being burned, and yet had no pain, no awareness of the physical, except that the old me was leaving. I saw my obituary in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. I saw my parents grieving, and I thought, oh my God, I'm going to die. As I lay there in that puddle of flames and could not get up, I thought, I'm going to die. And I was okay with that. I was totally okay with that. Afterwards, a lot of miracles happened around that let me know that it was actually intended, that it was not an accident. After that, I became very, very spiritual, very interested. I had always been in church and I never felt alone. I always felt like there was a guide. Of course, we didn't believe in guides other than Jesus, so that I naturally assumed that was Jesus, and felt the presence of something other than myself or something bigger than myself all of my life. After that experience with the grease fire, that shifted into high gear, feeling the presence, feeling like I had a mission, like I was here for a reason, wanting to heal. I healed miraculously after being burned. There was very little scarring. even though it was 3rd degree penetrated. So after that, the recovery process really put me in touch with my spirituality. Now, fast forward until 1999, and I was going through some really difficult times emotionally. We had a lot of change in our family, and I felt like my marriage was falling apart. We were moving to a new state. My kids were in high school. They did not want to move. My daughter got sick, and it was like my world was falling apart. And the next thing I knew, Maya said something about feeling like she had been slammed down during that accident. That's the way I felt when I passed out in the bedroom one night. I was pinned to the floor. I could hear what was going on around me. I could feel my body, but at the same time, I didn't feel like I was completely in my body. My daughter would talk to me like, wake up, Mom. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm trying to talk to her. Nothing's coming out of my mouth. A little bit of panic, the ego feeling a little bit of panic, like what the heck is going on here? Dissociation. I mean, I was aware of enough of that. I'd been in enough counseling to know what a dissociation was. So I thought, well, that must be it. But at the same time, I felt change occurring within my physical body and within my psyche. Something was going on. And what I felt, or actually heard, was relax. You're okay. You'll understand this later. And that was 1999. It took about 3 or 4 years, because at the time I was still very indoctrinated in the church, still very much a Christian in that philosophy, did not believe in reincarnation. So how could I have died and come back in the same body? And that's the only explanation. That's what I was hearing for myself. I died and I came back in the same body. Did not compute. You know, if you don't even believe in reincarnation, how can that even happen? So needless to say, I didn't talk to anybody about it. I went through with the divorce. Just a few hours after that incident, the marriage was over. I looked at my husband. I'm going, I don't know you. I cannot stay in this marriage. I walked out of the house the next morning within 12 hours after this occurred, and left a 22-year marriage, and forgot that I even had a daughter in the house when I left home. That's how out of it I was, and how transformed. Now, after that, rapid succession of events occurred. Personality change. Didn't want to go to church anymore. I had been church pianist. I played hymns, and I wrote songs and prayed for 5 or 6 hours a day. All of that stopped. Had to get a job for the first time now that I'm on my way to a divorce. So that was a change. The relationship with my children changed. My daughter wouldn't even speak to me for a while. She was so upset that I had left her father and left her without saying goodbye. So I was trying to get her to do something. I was homeschooling her at the time, and she looked at me and says, I don't have to mind you. You are not my mom. And I was like, okay, something else, it's like these little nuggets dropped in, things like that, where there's a lot of change. There's other people saying you're really different, that caused me to explore, but yet not knowing where to turn to. Like several of you have witnessed here, we didn't have a whole lot of information back then. There was one website, and I think that one is still up, and it talked about what a walk-in is. And I thought, that didn't happen to me. that couldn't happen.
Did you think you were going crazy?
Yeah. My first husband, the one I was divorcing at the time, wanted to have me put into some kind of a rehab. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did you hold on to your sense of expanded being?
It was that feeling that everything's okay, and that the knowing that what I had experienced, I was going to understand it one day. The feeling of the presence being amplified of some higher beings with me kept me believing in myself even when other people weren't. That intimate relationship that I was having with Source, or whatever it is you want to call that, I didn't know at the time that it was likely off-planet beings that were with me in some sort of interface. I felt that many times that I think it was Hildegard or Maya had said, feeling like I was the ground crew and I was given feedback to being somewhere, somehow, like my experience mattered. What I was going through on a daily basis mattered to them, that I was important for their mission, but they were also important for my mission. Then I discovered things about the multidimensional aspect of the soul and how the soul can have so many different aspects of it, different, that the timelines were very fluid and that you could sink in and out of one or the other. Had that experience many times since then. When I guess it was in the next walk-in, fast forwarding again, was in 2005 when I felt like the original soul that was blended with this 1999 walk-in actually left. The natal soul actually left at that time. So we were blended for a while. And at that time, I knew I was dying again. It was going to be one of those things where I was going to have surgery. It's like, I'm done. I'm out of here. It's okay. I'm totally cool with that. And I felt very different after surgery. Again, it's an inward thing, like so many of you are saying. It's really in here that all these experiences are occurring. And I guess I stopped at that time really caring about what other people thought of me, that I wasn't looking outside of myself for validation of what I was experiencing. And I found a lady, I was editing and writing books at the time. I was doing ghostwriting, and I found a woman who wanted to write her biography and wanted some help with the editing and what have you. And she told me her story about being a walk-in. And something in me just went, oh my God, this time hearing that word made sense. By then I had progressed away from my limiting beliefs and doctrine, and I had moved into a more broader understanding of the human and the soul, so that when I was presented with that information, it still didn't quite. I'm like, how can that be? As somebody said, if I hadn't experienced it myself, I would think that, this couldn't happen. It was the best explanation I had. I mean, yeah, that makes sense now. Okay, I've not had any other information on it. This was the time when I was beginning to understand it will make sense later. So that was like 4 or 5 years. The natal soul had left, and finally I knew what had happened. So I continue to have these upgrades though.
So you're not the original soul in the body, right? Or are you a modification of that? And
it could be. It's like others have said, it's like, I don't really know. I don't get the intel on it. I'm just here to have the experience and to report in.
Well, that's what's so great about this. There's nobody telling you, anyone, this is how it is. This is wide open territory that we're all sort of formulating this multidimensional reality right here, right now, right in front of us.
Yeah.
And nobody has all the answers, and because it's a new science, if we want to call it a science, it's an evolution of understanding who we really are. I think that's like so key to this. So how many times have you had that level of experience?
Where there's been a shift or some type of a supernatural experience? Let's see, 76, 88, 99, 2005, 2013, and last 2019. So like 6 times. 6 times what?
Yeah, like every 7 years or 8 years is like.
I guess that's my cycle.
So I'm just curious, where were you? Do you know like who the beings are, where you came from, like what the or? Yeah,
I've had several feelings. It feels like to me I have a very diverse team that I work with. I know that some of them that came in, somebody talked about your guides rotating in and out. It felt like some of the people, the guides that were helping me have changed over the years. Some were very Pleiadian. And that 2005 was very Pleiadian feeling. I also in 2013 felt like I had an Arcturian being that was working with me, that was walking in. And the one last year is very Lyran, and it's connecting me with other people who are with that, the Lyran gate. You know, the Lion's Gate for me, this 2020 was extremely beneficial and also difficult physically. I felt like I was receiving upgrades to the body, and the body was having a little difficulty assimilating that.
Mhm.
Typically, I don't have that. The moon phases, like, what moon phase is it? I don't even know. Oh, we had an eclipse. I didn't know. Oh, yeah, that's right. Last week was the solstice. It's always, it's like it never affected me. But this Lion's Gate felt like I went through a portal at that time and jumped a timeline.
Wow, that's great, because I thought it was really powerful too. I think it was like a shift in frequency
Yes.
that I felt. So do you have a mission, you feel like, because you're so expanding all these levels? What do you think your mission is here?
Well, it's to help people realize the multidimensionally expanded part of themselves. That came through with the empath. When I was very, very sensitive as an empath, I helped people who were having that. I wrote a book about it. Then the next thing came along was the walk-in. I finally got out of the walk-in closet, wrote a book about that, started helping a lot of people who was having that experience, and I still help those people. Then it was light language. The coded languages of the ETs and the angels were coming through for me, and that really amplified what I was doing for people. I think Maya was saying how her psychotherapy had changed so much, because it's like no more talk therapy. A lot of what I come in, I'll let them present their story, and I say, are you ready for this to shift? And I'll just go into light language, and something shifts in them. Some of them have walk-ins. Some of them are delivered from some entities that have attached to them. I don't know what all goes on. I know I have a team that works psychically. The hands move, the hands go in and out of their field. I rearrange things in their Akashic records. And that's just what I've been shown. I know that a lot more is going on than what I'm actually aware of. I think the first time I realized that I was working with a team was when I saw Mary Rodwell on she was interviewing someone who was doing something over a body, and she was speaking these languages and moving her hands around and this and that. I'm going, oh, that's what I do. That's what I do. And when I had that aha, it's like, this is real. Other people are doing it. I had been so used to, I'm the only one that's doing this. It was comforting, actually, to see somebody else doing it.
No, that's great. There's one question I actually want to ask everyone, because there's walk-ins and there's also soul upgrades. I mean, there's transformations that you can have that I think some people claim as walk-ins. I don't want to judge anyone's experience, but I think it's really not. I think it's just a natural evolution of consciousness. I mean, how would you answer that, Yvonne? And then I'll ask everyone that too.
I would totally agree with that. I don't know that all of mine are walk-in type soul exchanges. Some of them are timeline jumping. I will visit another timeline on a parallel and have an experience here and have an experience in a greater level of awareness with a higher perspective, feeling like I'm an observer for a season, and then coming back into the body feeling very enlightened and very open, expanded, like the work that I'm doing has been enhanced through that experience. I couldn't call that a walk-in.
Right.
Soul upgrade, maybe, could be. The terminology, we're still developing the terminology. Soul infusion.
Right. There's no, Jacqueline, do you want to respond to that at all? Like, how do people know?
Yeah, I really understand what you're saying, Yvonne. And I have had a number of soul upgrades, which happens about every 3 or 4 years or so. And so for me, I can feel the difference when it's a part of my soul coming in to integrate or to assist with an upgrade or to be there for a while, or when I've had a walk-in experience.
Mhm.
To me, there's a you can I can differentiate
Mhm.
between that, because when a walk-in shows up, when another soul comes in to support me or to assist me, I know it's not me. I just,
Mhm.
innately know that it's not me. It's
Right.
another soul coming in to.
What would you say, Hildegard, about that difference of evolution versus walking? Because they're two different experiences, I think.
Yeah, I think the walk-in experience to me set me on a completely different track, whereas the upgrade occurs to me sometimes while sleeping,
Mhm.
or during meditation, or just sitting relaxed by Lake Ontario and enjoying whatever weather is going on. And I have this aha, there is this idea, or suddenly I know things that I know I never studied, I never had a conversation with anybody about, but suddenly I have this knowing. It may not be verified by anybody out there, but I just know it. And then something happens that verifies that. Books falling off shelves, or people at grocery store checkout lines starting to talk about what I just had the aha about, and an interesting conversation evolves. So I can't really clearly distinguish this. I just was told way back then, this is now 28 years ago, during the most significant near-death experience I had, that I was continually being upgraded. Why? Because you cannot plug, let's say, a 220 volt machine into a 120 volt socket.
Right.
So there has to be some adjustment. And so the 9D, 7D had to be stepped down to fit into the 3D. And then as I was able to detoxify body, mind, environment, everything, and the vehicle, the body was stronger, I could then be given more.
Yes.
Right,
And
that's a great point, because it's a frequency. You can't hold a certain frequency if your body is on and consciousness is only at a certain level. Yeah.
Mhm.
because the brain is going into overdrive, right? This is, I don't know how to call this, on the ridge of a mountain, you have this footpath. If you do the foot too much to the right, you're going down the cliff here. Do it too much to the left, and it's a very fine line. Genius and insanity are very close together. And that is a difficult journey. I think many walk-ins or people who have, let's call it, paranormal contact experience. And I think the key here is to realize that I get to choose what it's gonna be. Human beings have choice, whereas animals have only instinct. We can choose to listen to our instincts, or we can run with our conditioned minds and whatever beliefs we carry, whether they're helping or hindering. And that is the balancing act for me that was the most difficult one.
But is walk-in a choice? It seems like it just happens. People do not, in a lot of cases, make a conscious choice. Oh, I want to do this, right? So how is it choice that way?
The choice on a soul level.
I guess soul level. Yeah, yeah. That's.
I think
that's a point.
everything is determined before we enter this body, the experiences that we're going to have, even the upgrades, because in my experience, what I have found is, as I've been talking with people and interviewing people, there is what's called your classic walk-in, which is one soul's out and another soul's in. And that's when there is an extremely noticeable transformation in everything from lifestyle to the way they articulate themselves. Then there's a soul infusion, where we are actually having more of our soul, more of our higher essence to come in, to blend in with ourselves. That was the case with my son. And he brought in an angelic aspect with him. Then we have the soul braids, where there's the two different souls in a body. There's the soul overlays that come and actually attach themselves to the soul and act as a neoprene suit, kind of as a body, as a battery charger for a week or so. That soul can leave and obtain healing and then come back, and then the overlay leaves, or they can meld into one, especially if they are another aspect of the soul, because our souls are so large, they are so multidimensional that there's no way that we can just wrap our brains around our own experiences, because our souls are so big that, say, right now, I can be having a 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th dimensional experience while being on another planet and having an experience while being in this body, having an experience, just because of the multidimensionality of who we really are. And when we have those entities or beings that come in and out, those are considered jumpers. And then again, there's that multidimensional soul layering, which I think a lot of people bring in with them. And throughout their life, one aspect will emerge for certain experiences. Maybe there's going to be an emotional trauma, and this aspect of the soul knows that it needs that experience. It has the experience, then it subsides. Because not all souls need to go through the birth and the toddlerhood. Like in my case, I was 38 years old when I came in, and so I needed an adult form in which to carry out my work. But because we are where we are right now on this planet, because more and more people are waking up, I think vibrationally, we as a whole, humanity as a whole, is opening up and bringing in higher vibrational frequency. As I alluded to in the beginning, we're actually changing the DNA of the vessel that we're in. And whether it is a walk-in soul or a natal soul, we're all having this experience together.
Yeah, thank you for that. I just want to go back to Yvonne. So in this conference that's coming up, what is it that you're going to share and teach and want to communicate to people?
Well, we're going to be talking about the multidimensionality of the soul and why we receive the upgrades to our body, to our spirit. I'm also going to talk a little bit about interstellar coded languages to work with that, because I think a lot of people are activating them, not realizing what they are, not knowing what to do with them. And rather than just saying what they are, I want to actually demonstrate and let them feel that and ask for some feedback. How does this feel to do you feel like you brought in more of your multidimensional soul when you felt that? Because a lot of what I'm doing with the light language is shifting DNA. It is shifting consciousness. It's breaking old patterns, and it's realigning the neurons in the brain, and the neural pathways are being cleared out so that something new can come in. It's like shifting the paradigm within the individual. So I want people to be able to experience that as part of the walk-in, because I've known people who walked in and immediately started speaking these other languages that they didn't know.
Right. No, that's great. The other aspect that I could talk to you and everyone about is, like, I think there'll be people watching this conference who may not know they're walk-in, who have never been around that term, and you say you work with people like that. So what do you tell people who say, well, like Maya said, I felt different, and I mean, how can people start to connect with that walk-in experience, I guess?
I have them to tell me their experience, and there are clues and things that I can pick up on energetically, as well as, like, there's a common denominator here. This happened. I don't ever tell anyone that they're a walk-in. In fact, I have an aversion for people who do tell other people they're a walk-in. I think it's something they need to discover for themselves. Some people, when they hear that, I've got a client right now, I've got to answer an email this morning, scared to death because somebody else told her she was a walk-in. She doesn't know what it is, and she thinks she's being possessed. That's the kind of stuff that I deal with on a regular basis. It's like, no, let's calm down and realize what this really is and provide some comfort for them.
Well, I do have to say, you brought up a very, I think, sticky subject. And I don't like to go into that area, but possession, that's that is not a pretty thing. And the difference, I think, is that is a lowering of vibration.
Yes, exactly.
And
Exactly.
we're talking about evolution here, and
Right. Right.
and hope and transformation and multidimensionalities. But I still think like you all have an awareness of who you've been, and I think there might be some people who lose that connection to who they were. Did you say that? Oh, you didn't even know you had a daughter, Yvonne? And then
Yeah, it was a temporary thing. I mean, it came back to me immediately. But, at the time, I think I was just so overwhelmed. I had some trouble remembering my childhood. All of that was like put on pause or shoved to the back.
Right.
That has come back now, but at first it was a little bit disconcerting to not be able to remember anything about my childhood. I was asking my mom questions about stuff I should know.
But weren't you remembering other things, like who you were in these other realms?
No, not at first.
Not
Not at first.
Well, this is why I think we're doing this conference, because it can be very startling for people who have had that experience. So what would you tell people who've had that experience then?
This is part of the ascension. Whether it's a walk-in, a soul upgrade, a timeline jump, whatever terminology you want to give to it, it is part of your ascension journey. Right. The possession that people are talking about, that's a dark op program. We're leaving that behind. That does not apply to the walk-in. The walk-in is embodying more of who they truly are and doing away with all the falsehood that has identified itself as the human being. The human is so much more, and we want to discover how much more and what is available when we truly remember who we are.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, should we talk to Jacqueline and then Hildegard?
Sure.
Thank you, Yvonne, for all that. So want to introduce Jacqueline there?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yes, and thanks, Yvonne. That was awesome. Appreciate it. And so now we have Jacqueline Smith, and Jacqueline is a hypnotherapist. She is a psychic. She's an animal communicator, a star being communicator. She too is hybrid and has had multiple walk-in experiences. And I think probably of every type that I've identified, if not more. So Jacqueline, I would love for you to share your story.
Thank you. And thank you, Alan. And thank you, Sheila, for doing this today. Probably my first walk-in experience was when I was 6 years old. I had a near-death experience. And after that experience, it was traumatic. Other souls came in. Actually, 2 or 3 other souls came in and kind of, we could call it piggybacked with me or stayed with me for a number of years. And also a part of me left, and then left actually for a number of years, and then was integrated later on in my life. And so as a child, there were a lot of other souls around me. I had a number of star beings around me. Actually, even before birth, I knew I was going to be a hybrid. I had remembered that. I remember star beings around me in the crib talking to me. And so when my mother was pregnant with me, they took her on the ship, and the Tall White Zeta Masters, who I refer to as my star parents on the ship, they injected me while I was in the room with, we could say, a cocktail of 7 different DNA races. And so I spent a lot of time on the starship as a child, starting around 2 or 3 years old. And actually around 3, 4, 5, I was speaking light language or star language on the ships with the beings, which for me was great fun. I so enjoyed the telepathic communication because it's so direct.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of how my journey started with that. It's been nonstop my whole life, with different experiences with other souls coming in at different times, and some parts staying, some parts leaving. And also I had 7, I had to integrate the 7 star being aspects of myself.
Mm.
Mhm.
And that was unbelievable. That took me a while. I had to communicate with each one of them to help them. We were helping each other. It was like a partnership.
Mhm.
They were integrating me as I was integrating them from their perspective. That's how they viewed that. And so I've integrated those 7 aspects, and I'm in touch with those 7 aspects. They can all look through my eyes. I hear lots of comments from them at different times. And so that's, to me, that's really interesting.
Have you written about all this? Do you have a book or something where?
You know what? Actually, I have a book coming out this year, hopefully in the next 6 months, about all of this.
Oh, great, good. No, go ahead. I was just wondering, where are you located? Are you in California or?
No, I live in Columbus, Ohio.
No, because I think sometimes the consciousness of the place can affect, how much comes through. And I think we're all lights in this community to kind of encourage other people. So we're spread out throughout the planet.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. That's what I was told by the star beings. So I, off and on through the years, I've had upgrades. I've had other souls coming to me. Some would come and stay with me for a while to support me through difficult times. I've had 3 near-death experiences. And so, and in some of those experiences, when I went to the other side, I was talking with other beings, and also other star beings were there too. And they were just telling me to go back, that my work wasn't done yet.
Yeah.
And in 2013, I had 2 weeks of experiences where I was traveling in other dimensions, timelines, went onto a mothership, and communicated with many star beings there. And when I came back, that took me a while to integrate, but I had, at that point, there were other aspects of my soul that were coming in and integrating. And then they took 85% of Jacqueline out and put in star being frequency energy. So I feel much more star being than I do human. So I've had to work really hard to kind of learn to be in the human experience.
But are you an ambassador for the star beings? Are you here, like, are they working through you to kind of upgrade?
Yeah, that's what they have said to me, because I can view things from the human perspective, but also the star being perspective, and share that with people.
Mm-hmm. So
And
what are they saying on the star beings perspective about them coming here in a bigger way and waking the planet up to our star being connection, like, or is it happening through people like you one-on-one, or will there be a mass kind of sighting?
this is pretty much my daily work. I do star origins with people, work with experiencers, and it's, for me, it's many people are awakening globally now, and it's about what they want us to understand is we are cosmic citizens,
Right.
that we are not from Earth, and that we all are star seeds. Everyone on Earth is a star seed, and in a bigger sense, we're all hybrids. So I think it's a huge time of awakening that, you know, to help humanity understand that, again, we are multidimensional. We are much more than humans in this body. And that it's time for people, you know, many people are waking up. I do star origin readings every day and work with people every day and experiencers. And I've been doing, and I do light language sessions like Yvonne. I work with people, helping them to let go of old identities and clear away things and welcome in the new so they can be more authentic and aligned with themselves. And I love that. Light language is just, since I've been speaking it since I was 3 or 4 years old, it's just a really natural way.
Actually, do you want to do a little light language? I just came to me to ask you, or do you feel like that? Oh,
No, I'm fine with that. I'll do a little blessing.
okay, great. Yes.
Okay. Shaka initi kuriata anata wayataha zeiki olaka odiata makayata sa olaki yamakate ira kariat naha so I dokakwa ini kaliaka naha siwa laka iana kayatate ishakia natate ira kariatate amakai usiki iananate ishike olo uanate yataya usi ine tiata ia umaki inatakala tole I iataha usi I uta usi iamaka usa I iata ula uma usi imakatuta inataya.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, so what are you going to share at the conference? What kind of information do you feel like? You know,
Well, I'm going to share some about being a hybrid, because I work with a lot of people who are trying to figure out if they're hybrids or not and walk-ins or not. So I'll be talking a little about that. I'll be talking about the power of light language and star language, how that can really support us. For me, it is our next evolutionary step in a big way. You know, just really raising our frequencies and changing our DNA. So I'm going to be talking about those things and sharing.
Thank you all so much. And I stick around if you want, because we'll have a general discussion. But Hildegard, we've been to a couple of online conferences together, but I'm interested in your whole story, whatever you want to share. And I know you have a lot to share, and you've been through quite a transformation. Like everyone here, this has been, you know, I think it's great to put these stories out there, because everyone has these things so privately, and they don't know what to make of it, or some people, and to share it publicly like this, I appreciate that. But it's also empowering for other people to realize the truth of their experience. So anything you want to say to introduce Hildegard, Sheila?
Sure. Hildegard is also a soul exchange walk-in, and prior to that, she has a background in languages, international trade and broadcast journalist. She's now an awareness consultant and working with people really to discover the fullness of who they are. And so, Hildegard, if you would share your story, please.
Thank you, everybody, for being here and for giving me that opportunity. And much like was shared before, I think Maya said it, you know, I've been pretty much in the closet for a couple of decades. And it's been a journey, and there's a reason and there is a timeline. I always say to people when I have the Toronto Experiencers group weekly, we meet on the internet, and I always say there's divine timing in everything. Yet, as Yvonne was saying earlier, when life falls apart in a big way, and it did that for me, where I had 3 near-death experiences. I think one was a primer, collapsing on an escalator and being in this light. And I don't remember much of it other than smelling a strong coffee, and in some back room of a store, people kind of saying, hello, hello, wake up, smacking my face and have some coffee. And, you know, but then experience number 2 was the real deal. So I'll take you back to me being a stay-at-home mom with 3 little children under 5. And the smallest one is heading straight to the road. It's, you know, the typical kind of North American subdivision. And I remember running after him. I saw the car coming and I ran after this child. And suddenly everything went black. Then suddenly I saw an ambulance coming far away from the highway into the subdivision. I saw neighbors running together, saw my little children, my 5-year-old holding the 3-year-old, and the toddler was held by a neighbor wearing a pink suit. Interestingly enough, for the longest time, I wanted to know whether this was real. I reconnected with this person after 20 some years. And yes, indeed, she did have a pink suit. She is a college professor and had this summer business suit on. Anyway, so there was this moment of seeing the 3D, screaming, I am here. What is all the fuss about? What are you doing with my body? And then waking up in a space of iridescent light. And I realized, oh my God, I'm dead. Yay, nobody's telling me I'm making this up. It's postpartum depression or whatever. And at the same time, there was this dreading feeling that, no, I can't be dead. I have children. It's not a choice. And at the same time, like all went very, very quickly. I take too long to explain it. It went all in rapid succession that I'm now I wanted to cover my eyes, touch my body, and I realized I don't have a body. And then how can that be? Catholics don't have another life. You know, we die and then you see Jesus and all of that. Like the old programs were totally useless in that space. And then I saw this iridescent light in the distance, and the voice in it, I just felt so envious of that voice. I said, yes, I want to be like that. I want to speak my truth. I want to do what feels right to me. And the first thing was I wanted to go there. And no sooner had I thought that, I was there. And I felt this warm embrace, you know, like this incredible cashmere sweater kind of hug feeling. And a lot was said, the words of which I don't recall. What was with me though, raise these children to the light and tell your story and be a support onto others. And so there was another experience, it might go too long, I'll talk about this maybe at the conference, where I was surrounded by 12 beings. They had platinum colored chest long hair, almond shaped eyes, they were bigger than human eyes. Their skin was immaculate and pure. And the person to my right shoulder, I'm looking into this person's eyes and we're talking to one another. And I'm thinking, isn't that weird? I can talk to this person, but they don't move their lips. Mm. And the color of their overalls was like opal, You know, if they have light shining on an opal in a bright sunny day, all these sparkly colors. And I was told that I had volunteered for this walk-in experience, that I was going to be downstepped from other dimension into 3D. I was a consciousness scientist from Andromeda Galaxy, and I had volunteered for this mission. Don't you worry, you will not want anything, but you may not get everything you want. And I will be continuously brought on certain ships for upgrades. So I very well relate to what previous speakers have said here, because I experienced that. And it was some of the experiences in the body were painful, not when I was on the ship. And I don't recall a lot of what happened on the ships, other than this one significant experience where I was set up. Now, coming back into the physical consciousness in a hospital bed with people by my bedside, what happened, where were you? I don't really recall what I said, but it was enough for Western medicine to think, well, maybe they should give me an injection. And I remember saying, prescription, please, for whatever reason. So the integration and the trauma of being aware that the world I found myself in was not my world anymore, that was scary. It really scared the crap out of me. The person I was married to for 10 years, I didn't relate to, being put in this little car and squished along on a highway. And I could see none of these people, or very few, were actually fully conscious driving these little things. And then what really cracked me open, though, and was just, wow, there were these 3 little kids running towards the front door of our house at the time. And mommy, 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 we thought you died, mommy. I mean, it still makes me cry, you know? It was so heart-opening. There was so much love coming to me for this body. And yet in my mind, I was of 2 minds. Get me out of here. This is not what I signed up for. What's going on here? So it was as if I, on the outside, looked the same, but nothing felt the same. And the integration process of that, learning how to do breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and change diapers, and what is this buying stuff on grocery stores, like it was just journal book in hand. I would go through the world for probably 2 years. And I had that heightened awareness, heightened sensitivity. I could feel things, I could see people's thoughts, I could hear what they were thinking. Loud noises were very intimidating to me. Everything was super loud. And I had to learn to dial everything down and to really focus and not answer the door and not answer the phone. And we didn't have internet at the time. So to find out what had happened was extremely difficult because there was not a lot written on it, at least not the libraries I had access to. At some point I registered at university simply, I think it was a social science and language course here at York University in Toronto. Why? I wanted access to the library system. Because if you're a student in one university, you probably can get into other libraries. Because I had heard from the world around me for 30 years before the walk-in experience that I was too sensitive, toughen up. And yet the exact opposite is my philosophy and understanding now. It's to reclaim our feelings, to stay out of our reptilian brain, which can only do this, tunnel vision. There is no ability to be empathetic if you're in the fight and flight and you're chased by a wild bear, let's say. All your brain is switched to defense. And in defense mode, I do not access my higher self oftentimes as consciously as we would like. So to me, this whole trip from living the 3D there's nothing out there. The earth is the center of the universe. You die and then you go to heaven. I realized I unconsciously had created my own hell. And now was it my job to create heaven on earth first and foremost for the creations that I had created. Mm-hmm. And then they were also proving to be the biggest helpers, because children up to the age of 7 are very much in tune to a broad spectrum of vibrational input. So imaginary friends, monsters in the closet, the cat talking or the tree, that is normal for children, because our soul senses, I believe, up to the age of 7 are fully out there. We have physical senses and we have at least 5 extrasensory perceptual tools. Yet our society that is stuck in a material universe does not acknowledge that. So it breaks my heart to see how many children are labeled to have an illness when in fact they access different stations, if I may call it that. Mm-hmm. Now, there may be obviously illnesses. I'm not a medical doctor or a psychiatrist. I'm not the expert at that. However, I'm the expert at my own experience. And the most devastating thing is when someone denies us our experience. To me, this is the ultimate abuse. I may not appreciate what Sheila or Jacqueline or Yvonne or Marie or anybody goes through to the degree that they have lived it. But I think everybody deserves to be given the space to express their experience and not being shut down simply because what you are saying may not compute with my machinery, with the level of consciousness that I might operate at, right? So this is my mission, really. Mission 1, raise these children to the light. Mission 2, share your story. So mission 1 accomplished. My 4 wonderful children are all amazing grown-ups, and they kept me in the body because they were my only reason to live. Mm. There are times for people, and I've heard this from others over the last 28 years, where suicide seems to be the only option to get the hell out of here. Mm. Because when all the systems, when all that which you believed was true and was valid doesn't support you anymore, that is really scary. And yet, when you're studying the ancient teachings, you know that it's part of the natural journey we go through. The physical body moves to a certain age. We are complete. What nervous system is done growing 25, 28. So then our natural journey would be inward to really develop our soul self, our spiritual aspects, and connect with our other dimensional reality aspects. And yet that isn't been taught. No philosophy, no university, no anything I have ever read. And I had a lot of books fall off the shelf for me, thankfully. Before, in the early 90s, I had access to internet. And the very first time I heard another human being say the word Andromeda was Alex Collier. Mm-hmm. I never had the privilege of meeting the person or speak to him in person. But to me, it was just, wow. So I'm not making this up. This is real.
No, I think that's why we're doing this, because this is a kind of new education for people. We're presenting new possibilities, and we're moving into an unknown time. Nothing that came before necessarily looks like where we're going. And I think we're forming communities like this to support each other's unique experience. That's what's so valuable about each person's story, to be honored and say, that is a beautiful path, that you're showing me more of reality. That's how I see it. And it's interesting. Everyone's had a kind of extraterrestrial connection here. Do you think because human consciousness is not able to shift to where the frequency of the universe is going, that we need to pull in the extraterrestrial? Maybe consciousness itself is extraterrestrial, but what do you think, Hildegard?
I don't like the word extraterrestrial anymore.
Okay.
Because to me, if you draw a circle, imaginary circle, it's all there is. Everything, it's one of the universal laws. Everything just is. The degree to which I understand my position in it, my role in it, my true self within that higher construct of creation, that then forces me to put certain labels on it if I want to talk to other people about it. So to me, there is no extra out there. I love the work of Nassim Haramein, I think is his name, because he researched really the black holes and the universe beyond the conventional laws of physics. Because I think what's going on here is we need to create a completely new paradigm in which we see ourselves. We are not living in a material universe. We are living in a space of various densified expressions. You know, the glass as water, but the water as water vapor or as ice or as snow, it's still the same thing, but it's a different expression. And I think we need to open our horizons to that. You know, we've been growing up within a frame of reference, and that's fine. And I'm very grateful for whatever my ancestors, my parents, you know, the people who came before me gave me. It was all very valid, but the planet isn't staying still. And everything, the only constant in life, and the only constant in the universe is perpetual change. And the more we become comfortable with the unknown, and the more we flow with whatever shape this body will take, because I didn't look like that when I was 30. The body changes. Our awareness, I think our consciousness determines our biology, or Bruce Lipton said it so nicely. He says, you know, our biography becomes our biology. Well, if the biology isn't pleasing, come up with a new idea, and eventually your physiology adjusts to that, right? So I think we're going into a call it superhuman, call it crystalline human. We are carbon-based creatures now. And I was told during my walk in experience, I had to change my diet. I had to change a lot of habits. I need to get rid of a lot of stuff that I considered were important for daily life. Why? Because it would inhibit higher frequency to be entered in the body. Nothing petrochemical, nothing modified, etc., right? Because we are going to become really a different kind of species altogether.
Right. No,
and we're in the chrysalis, right? We're in the chrysalis and become this butterfly, hopefully.
We are in the chrysalis. Let me ask Jacqueline Smith that same question. The ET connection in the upgraded consciousness, is that just the natural movement of where we're going? What do you make of that?
That's my understanding, is that it is a natural movement with the evolutionary process, that we are, you know, some call it becoming the new human, but I see more and more people getting in touch with their innate abilities like telepathy and clairvoyance, and that's opening in a much bigger way, which is you know, helping us be who we really are. You know, we're ready for that next step of manifesting these other abilities.
Right. But ETs seem to be a big part of we don't have to call them ETs, Hildegard, but whatever is beyond the Earth, the limited human consciousness seems to be a big part of the picture. Would you say that, Yvonne? What's
Oh,
your
absolutely.
opinion?
Absolutely. The term that I've been calling them off planets, because they don't actually have an incarnation on the planet, but they're off planet. So whether we're going to be in a different planet in a different form, or whether this planet is going to change its form, I do believe that we are evolving into something that does not hold the density that the carbon-based form holds. So I think we are on that evolutionary path.
What about you, Sheila? What do you have to say about that question?
I know that in my case, when I came in, I had a much, much higher vibrational frequency than I had before. And as that vibrational frequency integrated into my body, it began to change the cellular memory. It began to upgrade my systems. And I believe that that's happening to everybody on the planet through a variety of ways, whether it's massive energetic changes that are coming onto the planet that are facilitated by what I like to call our cosmic family, because I believe that we are all family. I believe that they are watching, guiding, offering support, yet not interfering to the point that it diminishes our free will. But as the other thing too is because of our soul essence, we are already multidimensional beings, but we're housed in a like a substandard computer. We now need to upgrade all of our systems, and they are there supporting us. Our interdimensional beings are supporting us, our guides, our teachers, being part of a collective. I am able to stay connected with them and receive information on a continuous basis. And so my support, is more in the spiritual realm. But we have so much support for what's happening on this planet right now. All we have to do is be receptive and open and receive it. And it is changing us very organically. We have this unfoldment of becoming a higher form of being.
Right. No, thank you all. I'm looking at the chat. Someone asked, is RH negative blood a part of the evolution? I think it might be the capacity to hold greater frequencies. Does anyone have anything to say about RH negative blood? Because there have been a lot of hybrids, abductees who seem to have that. Does anybody want to comment on that?
I'm RH negative.
Oh, you are? Okay. I know my mother is. I don't think I am, but it might be some kind of vibrational upgrade. I don't know. Oh, Hildegard, I didn't ask you what you're going to be sharing at the conference. Can you tell us?
Yes, so I believe that all human beings have the ability to determine their lives. We are not victims. We are conscious or unconscious creators. So whatever I have in life that isn't pleasing right now, I have the ability to transform. So I would like to discuss the discovery of the genius within. This is what I love helping people do. Ascertain the status quo. Where am I at? How did I get here? And how can I very naturally and gradually transform what is into something that lets my soul sing all the time? Because I think human beings come in with certain aptitudes. Ellen has abilities I don't have. Everybody here has unique gifts and talents, and we are here to find out what they are. And somebody said earlier, I'll never tell anybody they're walking. No, you have to own things. You have to figure things out for yourself. When my children learned to do their shoelaces, that was the biggest deal once they figured it out on their own.
Right.
And I think we are oftentimes disabling ourselves by constantly looking out there while the answers are still here. And I hope that by the end of my presentation, people begin to pay more attention to the subtle ways that inner soul guidance system is talking to us all the time. Yet it has a hard time getting through the concrete walls of conditioned mind.
Right. I mean, what you said before about, no one telling us, I thought of the story about you can't help a chicken to crack out of the egg, because then it won't have enough strength to live. Everyone has to crack out of their own egg on their own, and that will give us the power to be who we really are in the world. So
so stand in your own power. This is like what Dr. Hawkins in his book Power versus Force says. That is true authentic power. To live your life joyously, authentically, and in doing what you're joyful and what gives you the most joy, you simultaneously add your piece of the puzzle to help the bigger human consciousness evolve, So it's brilliant. I love it.
No, I totally agree. And that's why I think we're doing this conference. It's not because walk-ins is a curiosity and it's something strange. It's because human consciousness is evolving towards something unknown, something not yet conceived, and we are part of the ground crew to make that available to people, to just suggest that they can be, if they want to crack out of their egg, something bigger. I mean, what's your vision for the conference, Sheila? Why did you put it together?
Oh, well, there are quite a few reasons, but the main reason is to be able to let people know that walk-ins are here, to know and to share our experiences, because maybe someone who's watching the conference can identify maybe with Hildegard, or they listen to Jacqueline. It's like, oh my gosh, that's my experience. And they can find that camaraderie, because I think that it's time that we start coming together to form a very strong network, to be a community that can help support each other. Today alone, I've already received 3 emails from people thinking that they're a walk-in. How do I know for sure? These are things happening in my life. Most of the people that I talk to initially, they're going through an identity crisis. And so my presentation is going to be talking about ways to assist with the integration process, as well as ways to identify if you are a walk-in. And in the book, and also in the presentation, I have a questionnaire that people can ask themselves to start letting them know that when they read these questions, like, have you recently experienced a total change in your attitudes? Have you switched jobs? Have you this? Have you that? And people are like, yes, yes, yes. Then it's like, oh, well, maybe this is why these things are happening. And I think that we all, walk-ins typically don't walk into a rosy situation. They come into an environment where there's chaos, there's illness, there's trauma, there's maybe near-death experiences. They step into that body, or they switch places, or they bring more energy of themselves, or they come in to help that person move through that. And I believe that moving through is actually what's helping to elevate our consciousness and to be able to clear that cellular memory, so our souls can input new frequencies into the body. We can input and hold and anchor new frequencies on this planet that's going to help all of us to make the shift.
Yes, beautiful. Thank you. I just want to put, you want to show your book again also, Sheila?
Sure.
And I just also want to put up that's Sheila's book, Walk-ins. This is where the sort of conference sort of started, with that book, and Cosmology of the Soul. I love that, because soul incarnation is really a science that we have yet to discover. We have yet to formalize the actual science of incarnation. What is there? And this, I think, is the next level of science. And I'm also just going to show the flyer again for the, this is it. So that's Sheila and Barbara Lamb, Rebecca, Mary Rodwell, and we had Marilyn Harper on yesterday. Hildegard is up there. Emma Louise we had on yesterday. Jacqueline Smith today. And then there's some other people I don't know. Yvonne we had yesterday. Yvonne Perry, yes, here today. Gail Mack, I know. Anyway, everyone has such a different perspective on the walk-in experience, and that's why it's not one thing. It's
Right.
not like, oh, this is a walk-in, or maybe it's a transformation and not a walk-in, or you're maybe a hybrid walk-in. It's so complex. The soul's own cosmology, I'll put it that way, Sheila, that there's no box to put it into, but that's why we have so many amazing speakers that Sheila put together. And if you want to register, go to portaltoascension.org. There was an early bird special that ended. What's the cost now, Sheila?
It's still very low at only $88.
And that gives, it's 24 hours of presentations that you can listen to anytime. So you're getting a lot for all the information and you can listen to all this stuff. I mean, I can listen to this interview again and get more out of this. So thank you. And is anybody else coming up on, are we doing Barbara Lamb tomorrow? Are we interviewing her?
Yes.
Okay, great. Any final words from anyone here or everyone here? Yvonne, do you have anything to just leave people with, just to share?
No, I could do a light language transmission, but I feel like we've covered that.
Yes, I love that. Please do that. That's one of my favorite things.
Okay, that'd be a great way to close and just do a blessing for people.
Yeah.
Orana te crucifa, scruskia, nonanala, toguria, carasiscus, te curta, hara, ascrotariana, eacroma, uvasukai, ero, aram curtucuriska, shute, ushato, cucucop, matatala, varotocre, saki, urana, harshkumatakua. Vasalagia, unaya, ikuru, cortapte, otscon, antatalovian torumuru kurbayaka, sorbayakanaka.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Okay. Hildegard, do you have anything to share before we close?
Well, I think there's nothing to be afraid of. This is a process that's gone on this planet for millennia. It's not unusual. It's only now that we hear about it. And I think just flow with it and have the faith and trust your inner voice.
Mhm.
And the law of ask and you shall be given, it applies, just that we often are not given the way we expect it. You know, somebody said God's voice is not on a ghetto blaster, it's very subtle. All is well, you know, it's a good thing.
Great. And you, Jacqueline, anything you want to leave us with?
I guess one thing I'd like to share is a couple messages that the star beings have shared with me for a very long time. Is
Yeah.
just a reminder that we are all one, and to live from the heart and to keep things simple.
Mm. That's good for anybody, not just star beings, but well, and Sheila, what do you want to say?
That we are in the process of becoming our multidimensional selves, becoming a new human, and there is community out there. And so I hope that people that are hearing this, you can always reach me at sheilaseppi.com. That's the website. or Sheila at SheilaSeppi.com. It's SheilaSeppi.com. And then there's also a place on there where it says author. You can go in and click, and it will take you to the website for bios and information about how to contact absolutely everyone that has been on the programs for the past 2 days, plus everyone that's going to be speaking at the conference.
Right, and that is January 8th, 9th, and 10th of this coming year, 2001. And it's going to be very exciting. If you love what you heard here or yesterday, just think of this as a real intensive course in the evolution of consciousness. It's what we're all moving into. So thank you all today. I think I'll just end with a little commercial for myself here, if you don't mind. This, do you see that up on your screen there? This was my book coming out. Do you see that? No.
It just shows the Amazon.
Oh, you don't see the whole thing. Anyway, I do have a book coming out called, there, do you see it now? Making Contact?
Yes.
Making Contact, which is how I collected a bunch of essays by people who are opening up to these levels of awakening. And I have a bunch of authors in there, like some of the best: Linda Moulton Howe, Whitley Strieber, John Mack, who we mentioned earlier, Daryl Anka, Channel 4 Bashar, Nick Pope, Grant Cameron, J.J. Hurtak, Carolyn Corey, Mary Rodwell, Henrietta Weeks is a poet friend of mine and mine. And we all I've collected all these stories because this is another avenue of our evolution. So you can pre-order that if you want on Amazon. And we have to include everything: walk-ins, extraterrestrial, transformation of consciousness, anything that will free us from this old box of restriction about the human spirit. And that's all I feel ETs, if you want to call them, are the reaching out of spirit to other possibilities that lie outside the box, the conditioning that we've been told we are. That's really what I think this conference is about: freeing ourselves from limitation and moving into something greater, because that is what we've always been. So,
and all those experiences are connected.
Yes.
yeah.
They're
And
all
you a great
connected.
example.
Near-death experiences, walk-in experiences, shamanic, they are all connected.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's all connected through this evolution of consciousness. Yes, thank you for saying that. Well,
Yeah.
Sheila, thank you for pulling it all together and the hard work. And
Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you.
okay, everybody,
Thanks,
good to see you,
everybody.
Hildegard, again, and Yvonne, great to see you again. Great to meet you, Jacqueline. And
You too.
And I'm looking forward to this conference. Sheila, if these last 2 days are anything like what we're going to see, it's really going to be incredible.
Yes. Yes.
All right. So again, the website for getting a ticket to these 24 hours of walk-in and other levels of experiences, portaltoascension.org. Look for online events, and you can see it there, register there. Okay. Thanks for everybody for taking all the time. And,
Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Thank you,
Thank
Sheila.
you. Thanks
Okay.
for having us on, and thanks everyone
Okay, and we'll see everybody really soon
at the
Wednesday.
conference.